And welcome back, everybody, to Texas Stars Summer with the Stars series. I'm Owen Newkirk, and here for episode 10, we're joined by Brett Ritchie, who, obviously, like every other Texas Stars player from last season, is looking to try to make the Dallas Stars lineup, but could see his first full pro season in the friendly confines of the Cedar Park Center. Brett, thanks so much for joining us from Toronto, or I should say from the suburbs of Toronto. What's your first summer been like as a professional hockey player?
I think it's been normal, and nothing really changes. The same routine as I did last summer and the summer before. So I think, just keep going along my business here.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you attended the Dallas Stars development camp right after the NHL draft in early July. What was that experience like for you this year as opposed to the previous summer?
You know what? Actually, I wasn't there this year. I had my tonsils out a couple days before the camp started, so I was in rough shape, and I just was advised by J.J. McQueen and Jim Nill down in Dallas that it'd be a good idea just to rest and get back to full health, because it was something that I really had to get done. It was getting sort of a couple throat tonsil sicknesses a year, so it was sort of something that was pretty important on my list to get done in the off season.
Now, you've been to one of those before, so they always stress that development camp is a big thing about helping to teach a player pro habits. Do you think because of your experience with the Texas Stars last year that maybe wasn't as big an issue as opposed to maybe it would have been your first development camp?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, the first time I went, it was a big eye-opener, and they teach you a lot of things. It's sort of, you live like a pro for that week while you're there, and you sort of see what it's like what you're going to expect at the next level. So I think, I've been there. Actually, I went there twice. I went there last year as well, so it was a good experience, and I would have loved to go again. But like I said, it was just something I had to get done in the off season. It's hard to sort of get a tonsillectomy surgery down here too with Canada. It's not as wide open as the States. It doesn't seem like so.
Well, it sounds like it was
bad timing.
Yeah, it seems like it was a good time to get rid of it. But I've also you spoke with the Stars beat writer for the Statesman here in Austin, Sean Shapiro, not that long ago, and he mentioned that you'd been doing a little bit of different physical training this year with a new fitness coach during the summer as opposed to things you've done in the past.
Yeah, actually, lots of season I was with Gary Roberts, so I think there's about 7 or 8 of us from the Dallas organization. I know he was good friends with Joe Nieuwendyk, and so we were there last summer. It was awesome, and so this summer I moved on with a guy named Aaron Downey. I think it might be a familiar name with some of the Dallas Stars fans. He played there, I'd say 10 or 12 years ago for a little while, so he's sort of a tough guy for many years, and he has a gym. He lives out in the country down near my house, about 20 minutes north of my hometown, Orangeville, and so we sort of work 6 or 7 of us out of his. He has like a garage set up. It's like a big gym that he made, and there's a lot of unique stuff in there. He's sort of a farm boy, and he sort of makes his own equipment. It's pretty unique.
Now, I've heard plenty of stories, and you watched old movies, hockey movies like Youngblood, where you see a farm boy beating a heavy bag in the barn or throwing bales of hay and doing that kind of thing. What kind of unique fitness and strength training exercises does Aaron Downey have you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, the list could go on. I guess I'll give you a few examples. For instance, tomorrow we have a day called Gladiator Day, so it's all based around like cardio, strength, and endurance. So we're out in his backyard. He has all kinds of different. It's almost like obstacle courses. He has his homemade hurdles. So we're jumping over those with like a heavy log in our hand, acting like a hockey stick. We have these big wooden crates made of like logs and with handles. So you have to grip the handles and sort of walk with. It's called a farmer's walk. We take big boulders. We climb up stairs and throw them over like a chest throw over the stairs into the forest, and then we also have like a big rope that we climb up, just like arm by arm, so until you get to the top, you tap the top and come back down. So those are just a couple examples of types of things that you'd see that are a little different than your average gym, like a home gym or a commercial gym that you'd see in like a community. So I think it's really unique, and I really like the different variety that you come in every day. You never know what you're going to get.
I was going to say that has to really keep things interesting to you, because obviously if you stick to the same as you mentioned, sort of more traditional gym where you have weight training facilities with free weights and machines that you're used to, and you keep doing it over, you can get kind of bored with that, can't you?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? If you come into the gym and you know exactly what you're going to do every day, it gets a little bit repetitive after a while. So, we usually rotate. I've never done the same workout twice with Aaron, which is I like that a lot. It helps you to adapt to different situations, and I feel like you sort of work every muscle of your body because you're always doing something different.
And you were telling Sean, I believe, in that article that the Gary Roberts training, although obviously very well known for being fantastic for hockey strength training, was a lot farther away from where you live in Orangeville.
Yeah, you know what? I think I probably would have been back with Gary this summer if it was closer. But I mean, last summer I wasn't aware that Aaron Downey was doing this training so close to my house, and so I was driving an hour and 15 minutes, down the highway to East Toronto. So, it was a bit of a hike, and now that I found a comparable training facility close to home, it was sort of a no-brainer.
Does that allow you to obviously you spend a lot less time in the car going back and forth, but does that allow you to kind of mentally unwind and have a little bit more fun, whether it be, just relaxing at home or hitting the golf course a little bit more because you don't have to do quite as much commuting?
For sure, yeah. We work out early in the morning, so it's only a 20-minute hike down there, and you're done a lot earlier because you're not going to have to hike back. So I think, I'm done before noon, and I sort of have my day planned to get out whatever I have to get done, or do something fun like hit the golf course or play tennis or whatever. Usually something with my brother because we sort of have the same schedule.
Now, I asked you earlier, and you said you sort of felt like the same, that you're a pro in terms of what you're doing this summer. But as far as mentally, you're getting ready to think about playing for, well, let's face it, first the Dallas Stars, but if not them, the Texas Stars this year. Is that at all different in terms of your mentality than going back to play in the OHL?
I think you don't want to try and change too many things because, obviously I've had a little bit of success in the past, so I don't know why I would, try and change the whole ship. But at the same time, I got a taste of what it was like in the pros, so you sort of know what to expect, and you realize how hard you have to train to be an impact player at that level. So I think, obviously maybe it adds a little bit more focus in the gym and a little bit more attention to detail, but other than that, it's pretty normal. I don't want to disturb what I'm used to.
Now, you mentioned your taste. Let's go back to last April, only a few months ago now, although it seems like an eternity ago, that you came after your OHL season ended in the playoffs, obviously a little earlier than you would have liked. You went to the conference finals the year before with Niagara, so clearly a first-round exit wasn't what you had planned, but it allowed you to come join the Texas Stars before their playoffs began. And let's face it, you had a pretty decent pro debut. You scored a goal on your first pro shot against Oklahoma City on April 5th of this past year, and I have a feeling that was pretty exciting to get one that quickly.
Yeah, it was. I got to admit I was a bit nervous. I didn't really know what to expect. I did have a few practices under my belt that week, but obviously it's going to be a different level. And I was lucky enough. It wasn't much of a goal, but the puck just sort of squared to me in the slot there, and I threw it in. And obviously it helps with your confidence, and it's more luck than anything that it happened so early. But at the same time, I was fortunate in the fact that it helped my confidence a bit, and it got the ball rolling.
Now, you were able to get ingratiated with the Stars coaching staff, with Willie Desjardins and Doug Lister, along with the team before playoffs began. How was your reception from those guys? Because obviously trying to make a kid straight out of juniors comfortable at such a critical portion of the regular season heading into a very obviously intense playoff push with a very little time can be tricky.
Yeah, they were great to me. I think they're great coaches, and obviously they know a lot. I think, Dougie Lidster's a real player's coach. He's sort of, always talking with the guys in the room. He's almost like one of the guys at times, so, he was really easy to talk to. And Willie was also, he manages the bench, and he comes up with all the great ideas, so he was great. I think they make a great pair, and they had a lot of success last year, so obviously Willie had the coach of the year. He must have been doing something right.
Now, you had 5 games. You had 4 points, including 3 goals during that stretch, but then took a puck to the face in practice, and I've never seen somebody's cheek swell up to the size of a golf ball as fast as it did with you, and it was just by coincidence that I was down on the bench for practice that day, and you came over and it looked like you had a walnut on your cheek. It was enormous. It caused you missed a couple of games, but at the same time, you actually, but not because of that, you were actually wearing the wire cage right after that. Tell us a little bit about what that was like, getting the puck in the face, and then it seemed like you didn't really like playing with the wire cage full face mask as opposed to the visor.
No, I did miss a couple games there. It was just sort of an unfortunate play. I think somebody took a shot, deflected off their stick, and sort of I was off to the side of the net. It hit me right, sort of flat in the face. Like you said, it blew up pretty quick. So, luckily I was fine. There was no structural damage, but I was pretty immobile there in my facial area for a few days, and we had to try and protect it with the cage. Obviously, I used to wear one of those when I was younger, but I haven't in a long time, and it's just not as comfortable. You feel so free with a visor on, and I think I did use it for a few practices, but once I think the playoffs rolled around there, game 1 against Milwaukee, I took it off. So it was pretty good timing that way. You
segue beautifully into that. You came back to play game 1 against the Admirals, and like you said, after getting rid of a couple of those practices, that thing didn't stay on, and it's funny because one of your teammates, Taylor Vaz, took a shot to the nose, and he, I think, didn't even finish the game that he started wearing the wire cage because he didn't like it either. But when you go into that game against Milwaukee, you had gone pretty significantly into the OHL playoffs 2 years ago. You obviously played playoffs that year, this past year with Niagara in the first round. But what was it like to get your first AHL game under your belt, let alone scoring the overtime winner in game 1?
Yeah, it was exciting. Obviously, I made the jump to the pros, and then I had to make the jump into the pro playoffs. So it was a pretty quick transition, and the pace was pretty high. That whole series was a really tight checking series, and I was lucky enough to get the puck in sort of in the slot there in overtime and put one over the goalie's shoulder. So obviously, it was a great feeling. It's huge to get that first game 1 win, and in overtime, it was even more exciting. I think that sort of set us up for that whole series.
And just for, your standpoint, does that one stick in your mind as being something that you can brag about a little bit more than your first pro goal? I know you kind of played down the backhander into the open net on a rebound with your first during your pro debut, but the overtime one, there was no slouch in that shot.
Yeah, I think that was sort of a more crucial goal. The Milwaukee one was in the first period, and it wasn't a nothing game, but it was just a regular season game towards the end of the season. Obviously, playoffs is a whole other animal, so I think, anytime you can score in the playoffs, it's a lot harder to score in the playoffs, obviously, and in overtime, it's even more special.
I want to back up just a little bit before we go into more of those playoffs. You played with Jamie Alexiak in Niagara in juniors, not this past season, but the year before that. You guys were actually drafted in the same class in 2011. He went first round with the Dallas. You went in the second round. What was that experience like for you to be paired with, not only to play with the big rig, but also to be part of that same draft with him?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Actually, I didn't play with Jamie in Niagara in our draft year, but it was the next year when we both got traded in Niagara. So, I didn't know him when we were both drafted originally. He wasn't in the OHL at the time. He was at Northeastern University in the NCAA. So, I just knew of him. But obviously, he's a great guy, and I'm happy that we went to the same team. We're good friends now, and hopefully we'll be playing together for a lot of years to come.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because you actually were with Sarnia when you were drafted. You didn't get traded to Niagara till the middle of the 11-12 season. But you go back to your draft, just to touch on it briefly, it was the first draft in the NHL has held in the state of Minnesota since the North Stars hosted it in 1989. So it was kind of a special location for them. And obviously for you, 44th pick overall. How exciting was that for you to be a part of something like that?
Yeah, it was really cool. I just wanted to get drafted. I didn't really care where, and the draft's a funny thing. You never know where you're going to go. But obviously when they called my name, I didn't really have any hint that it was going to be Dallas or anything like that. I just sort of knew the range that I might go. So, it was a huge relief when I heard my name, and I went down there and met Joe Newendijk and all those guys, and it was an awesome time. You
played with Sarnia at that point, and then during the season you were traded over to Niagara as part of a deal that, and as you mentioned, Alexiak also joined the team there. What was it like playing with the big rig, or more importantly, for a kid that's 6'7", Was it just men versus boys when he was playing against teenagers in junior hockey?
Yeah, it was actually. It's even like that sometimes in the pros. You can imagine in junior. You're playing against 16-year-old kids sometimes, and they're 150 pounds, and he's almost twice their size. So it can be scary at times for some of those guys, and even for a big guy like me in the league, I looked up and said, "Oh my God, this guy's huge." But he was a great player for us down the stretch there in the playoffs, and we went to the finals, and he was sort of a 1-2 punch with him and Dougie Hamilton, who plays for Boston now. So he was great, and he made a smooth transition to the pros. So it just sort of showed that he was sort of outgrowing the junior level.
Is it neat to go from a teammate that you played together in juniors to rejoining them in the pro ranks within the same organization? Not every day do you get to play on the same junior team, get drafted by the same team, not necessarily in that order, but then also go on and play in the AHL and both be striving to play in the NHL for the same organization?
Yeah, it's just sort of the luck of the draw, I guess. But it helps when I first got there. I knew a couple of the guys on the AHL team from development camp and whatever, but I obviously knew Jamie a little better, so just gave me a little bit of familiarity right away, and it helped a lot. So I think it's pretty cool, pretty fortunate that happened.
You had a pretty crazy schedule this past season because you obviously played in Niagara. You also played over in the World Juniors in Ufa, Russia with Team Canada. You went to the Dallas Stars NHL training camp when the lockout ended. You went back to juniors and then went to Texas. You played 2 playoff series, or 3 playoff series, but in 2 different leagues. Was it a pretty exhausting schedule for you, or at your age were you just welcoming as many games as you could?
Yeah, I don't think you should never complain about how many games you play when you're as young as a lot of guys in Texas are. But obviously it was a bit of a roller coaster ride. You're in Niagara to start the year, and obviously with the lockout, you weren't sure what was going to happen there. And then the World Juniors, you leave your junior team for a little while, you come back, and then there's the prospect of the lockout being over. It did happen. So I think a lot of things happened so quick, and it wasn't so much I felt it was a long year, but every time there was a new change, it felt like a new season. So, I didn't think of it as being a long, dragging season in that sense. I finished my season in Niagara and sort of thought, here we go, I get another crack at it in Texas. So I think it was a great opportunity.
Now you've been to a couple interesting places. You went to Germany for the 2011 U18 World Juniors with Canada. This past year, I mentioned you went to Russia. What's it like to get that unique experience to go overseas to play in a major, junior tournament like that? Because not many hockey players get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's unique. I can say if you've never been there, it's a lot different than what you'd see at Cedar Park with the North American style of game. But it's a great experience. Anytime you can represent your country, no matter where you're from, there's a lot of pride there, and I've been lucky enough to do that a couple times. So it's a great opportunity, and to see the different places around the world. I've been to the Czech Republic and Slovakia for another term as well. So I've seen quite a bit of Europe and what it's like across the pond there. So I'm really fortunate in that way.
At a couple of the major tournaments you've played for Canada with, you've actually ended up losing in the semifinals and losing to Russia twice in the bronze medal game. I know that you guys are trying to win every game in competition-wise, but is there a pretty significant sort of letting the wind out of the sails when you get knocked out of the semifinals and end up having to try to refocus to play that bronze medal game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've sort of been unlucky, I guess you could say, and when I've represented Canada, U.S. and Russia, I've had my number pretty good. We did win the one tournament, but it's such a tight competition when you get down to those top teams. Russia and Sweden, the U.S. and Canada, they're all great teams, and it can go either way. And it's just sort of, you see it every year in the World Juniors. Usually the same team doesn't win, and it just shows how tight it is and how much competition there is within the world. So, obviously you're a bit bitter when you lose to one of your rivals like the U.S. or especially Russia, but it's a learning experience, and as long as you leave it on the ice, it's not that bad at the end of the day.
Well, I've asked Jack Campbell, who's one of your teammates with the Texas Stars, of course, in one of our recent episodes about his success, because he has 3 gold medals, not to rub that in or anything with Team USA, but he also has aspirations down the road to not only be an NHL goalie, but said he would love to represent Team USA at a senior tournament, whether it be at the World Championships or even the Olympics. Would you have that? Do you have that sort of ambition harboring in the background somewhere of playing for the senior Team Canada team some point?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You obviously want to play in the NHL, and then they have that opportunity at the end of every year if you're out of the playoffs. The World Championships are every year, sort of at that same time, and I know a lot of guys can't wait. Even though their season ended, it's a bit of a down, and then you have that chance to play for Canada. So it's like sort of like when I went to Texas at the end of the year. It's a second chance, and I know everybody. I sort of speak for everybody in Canada. They love putting on that jersey. So I think anybody would be crazy not to jump at those opportunities.
I know that you and Roddick Foxer were the only juniors invited to the training camp at the end of the lockout this past year, and obviously both of you have had some pretty wild seasons because you both played World Juniors. You both went down to Texas at the end of the year. But tell me a little bit about what your comfort level is going to be this coming training camp, because we'll have a normal NHL training camp in September, and then everything else will sort of fall in place. Because of the fact that you've been there, done that before, does that give you a little bit more comfort and confidence?
Yeah, for sure. I think, experience breeds confidence, and, I'm not going to be completely comfortable because, you don't have your spot or nothing on the team, but at the same time, I sort of know what to expect, and, I was there a couple of years ago when we went to PEI for the Dallas Stars training camp. It was a great experience, so I sort of know what to pull from those experiences, and hopefully I can make a good impression.
That being said, you have a new general manager, Jim Nill, who you probably did get to meet with during your exit meeting, and he saw you play in the playoffs, but, not the same general manager that drafted you, and a new head coach in Lindy Ruff up in Dallas. Feel like just like any other year, you have to prove yourself, whether it's to new people or not?
Yeah, I think, whether it's a new guy or not, you have to prove yourself, and I think, Jim Nill, he's so a lot like Joe Nieuwendyk, it seems like. He looks for the same things in a player, and he sort of builds the team the same way. So I think, obviously it's huge. You have to play your heart out when you get to camp and try and make a good impression. So, I don't think my mindset's going to change it doesn't matter who it is.
No, I've asked pretty much all the Texas Stars guys because, of course, as members of the Texas Stars, we're trying to look forward to an AHL season. You have to, as an AHL affiliate of an NHL team, understand where the priorities rank in the organization. Everybody wants to have organizational depth, but the NHL team usually is well, I shouldn't say usually, is always priority number one. That being said, if you go into camp, and obviously there are spots to be won in the forward lineup for the Dallas Stars, if things end up with you're down in the Texas Stars, from what you've experienced here as a player, as well as knowing the kind of veteran leadership and the coaching staff that's going to return to the Texas Stars this coming year, is it easy to say that you could have a lot of fun playing for the Texas Stars, even though your ultimate goal is to make the NHL lineup?
Yeah, 100%. My short time when I was down there for a month and a bit, it was, obviously I got to see the city. It's a great place to live and great fan base, and, I didn't see anything I didn't like when I was down there. So, obviously, like you said, you want to be in Dallas, but at the same time, if you get sent down, your mindset's not going to change. You still have the same work ethic. You still have the same attitude, and you can obviously learn a lot when you're down there. So it'd be a valuable experience for sure.
Well, there's two guys that were part of the Texas Stars and Dallas last year. Matt Fraser and Riley Smith were traded away in the big trade with Tyler Stegen coming to the Dallas Stars. Does that opens up some possibilities in the top six in the Texas Stars lineup. Even though you're just coming into your first full season as a pro, you saw what Alex Chiasson did in his transformation throughout the season. Do you want to, if not with Dallas, want to be a guy that could step up and make a really considerable offensive presence for the Texas Stars?
Yeah, absolutely. I think your goal is you aim for the ceiling, right? So I think, you want to be on one of those top scoring lines, and you want to be a contributor every night. So, we did trade away a few of our top guys there in Texas last year, so that definitely opens up a few doors. And I'd love to be in that top six. Obviously, it's not really up to me. I just go out there and play my game and let the coaches worry about the lineups. But obviously, you want to be there for sure. Now,
I know you played in the OHL, and there's a lot of Western Hockey League influence with both Willie as being a head coach in Medicine Hat for so many years, as well as a lot of players. And you don't necessarily see those teams all that often. In fact, unless you go to the Memorial Cup, you never really see them unless you go see some of those guys playing for Team Canada and other international teams. But from everybody that I've talked to, that Willie Desjardins' team here in Texas is the same general idea of his teams from Medicine Hat. And the very high tempo, very hard to play against because they're relentless. 4 very difficult lines and a lot of pace. As a player playing in that system, did you really enjoy getting into that and then becoming a team that others really didn't enjoy playing against?
Yeah, I think if everybody's on the same page and everybody's going, and like you said, they're relentless on the puck, it sort of makes your job a lot easier. You can, you look better on the ice when you always have the puck and you're always on guys. So, I like how he preaches to everybody to play the same style of game, and it obviously worked for us. They had a great season in the regular season for those games. So it must have been working pretty good, and it's a lot of fun to play that style of game for sure.
Is there anything that you can do during the summertime as far as having fun and maybe relaxing a little bit that you just can't do during the midst of either a junior or professional hockey season?
Yeah, 100%. I think you can go on vacation on weekends. You usually have weekends off, which is a rarity during the season. You train Monday to Friday, but usually weekends are sort of your downtime to do whatever you really want to do. And then even like I said, I'm done usually at noon training Monday to Friday, so I have time to golf or play tennis, go fishing, anything like that. So I think it's just a little more free time, a lot less stress, on a daily basis, and I think that's the biggest difference.
Well, you got a taste of what the weather's like during in Texas as opposed to playing up north where you're used to. You might be able to get the golf clubs out a few more times during this coming season as opposed to playing up in Niagara?
Yeah, there's no golf in the winter here, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get out a few times at least during the season. I'll bring my clubs down for sure, and it's a little tougher during the season. Sometimes you don't want to be playing too much close to a lot of games in between, right? So and even the body might be banged up a bit too, but at the same time, we'll definitely find some free time to get out on the course, I'm sure.
At this point, you get to be a couple months out from the playoffs. Have you sufficiently recovered to the point where you're looking forward to getting back and playing games, or do you still need a little bit more time to get yourself really ready for that season?
No, I think I'd be ready to go if there's a season in a couple of weeks, but at the same time, you're so used to having at least 2 to 3 months off that you sort of you work your schedule around the fact that you're going to be going back, late August or whenever it might be. So, we're sort of at a different stage of our training right now. We're not fully through our phases yet. So I think, we just plan it out in a certain way to make sure that we're ready for a certain date. So I think that's the only reason why it'd be a little tough to start right away. But at the same time, I can't wait. I play shinny and I love going out there in the summer and just fooling around. So I definitely have the itch.
Do you have any new shootout moves you're working on that you might otherwise not try because you've been doing it in shinny?
I have a couple, yeah. I like to fool around out there. Obviously, stuff I might not try in the game, but just trying to be creative and maybe I'll work into something. But for the most part, we just go out there and have fun and just keep the hands and the feet and stay loose.
Well, Brett, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you join us here, and I know that you'll be hitting those bales of hay and other things really hard the next couple of weeks. But thanks so much for joining us, and I really look forward to seeing you at least in Dallas camp, for our sake, hopefully in Texas. But best of luck trying to make the NHL roster.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Owen. Good to talk to you.
That's Brett Ritchie joining us here for episode 10 of the Summer with the Stars series. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Owen Newkirk. We will be back for another episode next week. So long, everyone.